Today, we will be time traveling to E3 of 1997, where on the game floor, there were demos for the soon-to-be-released Castlevania Symphony of the Night. What would happen if you sent me, with all the knowledge I have about this game, back in time to sit down and play through the E3 version and show off exactly how broken it is? Not only can you beat the demo, you could do it faster than speedrunning the normal game. And we're going to be showcasing that right here, right now. But of course, we must select Special. And selecting Special mode is 100% required because there are two modes one could choose from when starting the E3 demo. The normal mode, which starts in the prologue of the game, and players progress normally to experience the beginning moments of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. However, the developers did add a forced game over after defeating the mandatory boss, Minotaur and Werewolf. So for that reason, in this speedrun, I will be choosing to play through the Special mode, where you begin the game locked in the catacombs at the bottom of the castle. One thing that is interesting about this demo is you start at level 1, yet your HP is pretty high. You start at 200 HP, you have 30 MP, 50 out of 80 hearts. Your stats are lower than they would be normally if you were playing through the game. We also have a lot of items unlocked from the start in our inventory, a bunch of potions. I guess they were, expecting people to be bad at the game and dying a lot. Makes sense. Not only do we have a bunch of potions, we also have a lot of the relics available in the game already unlocked. Soul of Bat, one of the most important ones. The Wolf relics, the Mist transformation, Cube of Zoe, Spirit Orb, Leapstone, Gravity Boots. A lot of the movement relics are immediately unlocked from the start, which is very important. Now, some of you might be interested in well, why don't you just walk out and go explore the rest of the game? I don't want to be in the catacombs. Well, you can't. They just don't let you leave from the side. So it was intended that you sit down, play the game, eventually you die or find Grand Falloon, and then the demo is over. And this is the whole thing. You pass the controller off, the next person gets to play. However, I don't want to pass off the controller. I intend to defeat the final boss and reach the end game credits, all within this demo session. But in order to do that, I first need to find my way out of the locked catacombs. First things first, we gotta get out of the catacombs. The developers assumed you wouldn't be able to leave. However, they did forget one key thing. This dark room, you're not normally supposed to be able to get past. Well, if somebody messed around in that dark room enough, they could have, theoretically, made it past the spike room. I guess the developers assumed that nobody would mess around with this long enough, but that was their first mistake. So I imagine at this point, the developers are already confused. What is this guy doing? Okay, it's fine. They found the spike breaker, whatever. But not only is the spike breaker here, but behind this wall is a library card. And in the game, library cards warp you to the library. So within the demo, you can find a library card and escape out of the bounds that the developers tried to keep you locked within. Now that I've escaped the catacombs, my next goal is to acquire better equipment so I can easily defeat the endgame bosses. Thankfully for me, the shopkeeper has a lot of very powerful equipment, but I don't seem to have a lot of money right now, so let's go fix that. Because we have all these movement options, I'm actually going to go out of my way to fly up here, do a little bit of a wing smash, and grab this relic right here, the fairy card. The fairy card will be very important for what we're doing next, because if I plan to beat the entirety of the game, I'm going to need some better equipment. Because the best weapon I have right now is what? The Ice Brand, which is okay, 28 damage. That's it. So I leave the library, go into the outer wall. Again, all of this stuff is supposed to be off limits. And then I can go out of my way to grab this garnet right here. It is a sellable gem. We can go back to the library and maybe buy something. I imagine at this point, if there are any devs or Konami staff watching, they are simply watching in awe, unable to stop me as I shield dash and wing smash through the game as if I had been playing it for 20 years. So now with Garnet in hand and the fairy card enabled, I'm going to summon my fairy familiar. While the fairy is talking to me in Japanese, I'm going to enter the room with the librarian. Because the fairy was talking at the same time as the librarian trying to talk, they kind of talk over each other, and it creates this situation where I can open the menu right now, where I'm not normally supposed to be able to. This cutscene will lead directly into the shop menu with the librarian, and I'm going to be able to still open the menu whilst in the shop menu. So having those two menus be available at the same time can really break the game. Also, the librarian had a little bit of a typo. Just tell me what you need. So here we're going to sell gem. The gem we will sell will be our garnet. But before we actually sell it, I'm going to go ahead and put that garnet securely on my ring, one of my fingers. I don't know exactly how you wear a garnet. Regardless, Alucard is not wearing the garnet, but the librarian still has the garnet on the table. We have duplicated the gem. And by selling this garnet whilst wearing it, I now have E5 garnets in my inventory. 255 garnets are now in my inventory. I could sell as many as I want to have a ton of money. This is the E3 demo after all. We'll sell E3 amount of garnets. And with that money, I can buy all sorts of very powerful stuff. I can buy a mana prism. I can buy buffalo stars, which are very powerful throwing items. And for whatever reason, in the demo exists the duplicator. You're not normally supposed to have access to this item until you've at least beaten the game once you have a clear file, but you don't need a clear file in this demo version to buy the duplicator. So because the duplicator is available, we're gonna go buy it. So within the demo, not only did we break out of the bounds that the developers wanted, we also sold basically infinite garnets in front of the developers. And now we have access to the most powerful item in the game that most players aren't even supposed to know exists at this point. And we can equip infinite mana prisms and infinite buffalo stars. And with the infinite mana prisms, we now have access to refilling our magic whenever we want, which makes the movement side of things a lot easier. I can use wing smashes, gravity boots, all of the magic requirements are now a lot easier, so that way we can go fast and get to the next part of the game. A reminder, this is a demo. You are not meant to do all of this. The demo station to my right is just some guy dying over and over again to Granfalloon. Meanwhile, I am exploring the entirety of the game. Now that I've escaped the catacombs and acquired all the powerful items I need to beat the game, my next goal is to enter the inverted castle so I can defeat the final boss, Dracula. But right now, Richter is guarding the path towards the end of the game, and normally I would need to acquire the holy glasses from Maria in order to free him from Shaft's control. But I have other plans for him. So from here, things are going to look very similar to other types of speedruns if you've ever seen a speedrun for this game, because we have access to everything we need to beat the game right now, which is very funny. Symphony of the Night is a game that just has a lot of power available to the player to just skip a bunch of stuff using glitches and other means. So we quickly make our way through the clock tower and into this area right here, the Castle Keep. Normally, the Castle Keep is kind of a barrier that prevents you from getting to the second castle of the game and then the true ending of the game, because you need the holy glasses to save Richter to make it through. We don't need that, however, because we are gamers. I've described this in other videos before, but essentially, doing a specific type of jump here with the wolf can allow you to enter the room without the game detecting that you've actually entered the room. You skip past one of the detection boxes, essentially. But by doing this, it loads a default state for the room because we've entered the room in a way that the game didn't account for. So the default state for the room, funny enough, happens to be the cutscene where Richter has been saved by Alucard. So if we let this cutscene play out to the end, it'll eventually end with Alucard walking over to the left, entering the second castle, and then the game can progress from there. But having to sit there and watch that cutscene is kind of long, and the devs are watching over my shoulder the entire time, and I only have about 15 minutes before the Konami employee behind me kicks me off the setup. So I'm going to go for a faster option. And that faster option requires that I open up this secret stairwell and then perform one of the dumbest tricks to exist in Symphony of the Night, which is a wolf floor clip. It requires multiple frame perfect inputs, but essentially, if I do it just right, I will clip into the stairs. And by clipping into the stairs and then transforming into Bat in such a way, it will allow me to be on top of the room where Richter needs to be saved. And I can actually fly around the cutscene trigger using a wing smash and completely avoid the cutscene and then clip back in bounds using this little slope here and jumping with the wolf. So it allows me to skip Richter like the other wolf skip does, except I don't have to watch the cutscene. So it saves me like 3 minutes of sitting through a cutscene, and now the Konami devs behind me don't have the means to kick me off yet. I still have about 5 minutes of playtime before my turn is over. At this point in the speedrun, I've been playing for about 7 minutes. 5 minutes faster than the world record for the final release. And now that I'm in the second castle, the glitches don't stop here, as I need to find a way to quickly get to the end of the game before E3 security kicks me out of the convention center. and we're going to quickly speed through the second castle. Normally here, you're supposed to find all of the bosses related to Castlevania 1's main bosses. All of those bosses drop Vlad relics. Those Vlad relics allow you to enter the final fight with Dracula, but I don't need any of that. Real quick, we're showcasing the power of the Buffalo Stars right here. Medusa goes down without a problem, and Medusa does drop one of those Vlad relics, so if I was trying to collect them all, I could collect the Heart of Vlad right now, but I'm not going to. I don't need it. At this point, the Konami devs are like, okay, come on. Like, you've already made it into the second castle. At least you're going to collect the Vlad relics and beat the game normally, right? No, of course not. I don't got time for that. This is a speed run. So we're going to diverge from what the normal any percent route would normally do. 25 years in the future, speedrunners will not be taking this route. However, I have to take this route because in this secret breakable floor down here is a heart refresh item, and it's one of the most important items in the game. And you don't start with a heart refresh, so this is the only way to quickly get one. So this will be our heart refresh that we grabbed for the run. I'm going to then make my way through this area, and once we get to the end of the inverted Alrox's quarters, we will be right next to the end of the game. Above this clock room exists the elevator that takes us to the final bosses of the game and eventually the end credits. It would open up if we had all of those Vlad relics, and it would enter us into a cutscene right here where the clock spins and then the area opens up. But we don't need to do any of that. Instead, we have a heart refresh, which is more than enough to beat this game. So instead, we're going to go around to where the save room is, and we're going to utilize a glitch that was discovered in 2013? But I, as a time traveler going back in time to E3 1997, have the knowledge of the future, knowing that if you walk forward in this exact spot and use the heart refresh, and then during the heart refresh animation, hold the backdash button, and then walk through the screen transition, and then transform into Bat along the ceiling, you will end up in the ceiling, and then if you wing smash a few times going to the left, you will break out on the other side out of bounds, and then we can just take the elevator up to fight the final two bosses. However, there is another heart refresh right here, and if one heart refresh is enough to break the game a little bit, 2 heart refreshes must be enough to completely destroy the game. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So yet again, we find ourselves at a crossroads where here I could just go up and then fall down this shaft to go fight the boss Shaft. However, again, we can't skip cutscenes in this demo build. So waiting through this cutscene just to fight Shaft to get to the final boss takes quite a while. Instead, we could utilize 1 heart refresh on each hand, now that we have 2, to do a camera shift glitch thing that's really insane. So what I'm doing here is I'm gaining a lot of ground speed by dive kicking into the floor and releasing forward by the time I hit the ground. Then from here, I can now alternate heart refreshes, 1 in each hand, so I can buffer the next heart refresh animation. So I can do this back to back with no gaps over and over and over again. And I just need to do this 17 times. And finally, 17. And from here, it should warp us into the floor, and then we can fly up the side of the arena. And all of those animations, yes, it's quite slow, but the cutscene with Shaft is quite a bit slower as well. It's actually slower by an entire minute. And not only does it save a minute, it also saves us from having to fight Shaft at all, because off screen right here is the boss fight with Dracula, just the load zone exists out of bounds. So we can touch that load zone, and it just warps us to the final boss of the game. But now, we can just throw our Buffalo Stars into Dracula over and over and over again until he's dead, completing the entire demo in just enough time before we were kicked off the setup at E3 1997, which means sitting down and playing the demo for the first time, you can actually beat the entirety of the game and get to the end credits in one play session, if you know the knowledge from the future. What's the meme? Girls with Time Machine, I'm your granddaughter. Boys with Time Machine goes back to E3 1997 to play the demo build of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, except with the knowledge of the future to use all of the bugs and glitches to finish the demo in front of the devs just to show off. That's me. That is literally me. Hey, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, as it really does help me out a lot. And if you want to support me making more content like this in the future, you could join my Patreon. Videos like this are only possible because of my Patreon supporters, and I'd like to give a special thanks to Microb, Grave Cactus, Nanoseed Production Company, C, Barnabas DeGray, Lieutenant CYX, Minus X, Soma Jean, TJ Foster, Atomic Dracula, Suchioto, Kenneth, Chaosvania, Joachim Palm, and WJB.